Hey viewers, it is I, Adam Marshall, back at it again with a new YouTube video, and today we will be looking at Andor Season 2 promotional stuff. I haven't seen a lot of stuff in a while. I've seen the second trailer, wherever that is. There it is. But they promoted a bunch of... I thought it was a lot. It's just two things. So, it's just 30 seconds, then we're going to check new rock stars, and yeah. So this video is either really short or really long, but you guys know, and I don't. So I got distracted. Trying to make the lighting look good.
Soldier. Think like a leader. Andor Season 2, streaming April 22nd, only on Disney+.
Nice. Do or die. Next one.
Placed information vital to the survival of the rebellion into the SAR-2 unit.
Every story.
Rebellion's built on hope.
Rogue One at the beginning. Yep.
Fight. Or you want to win?
We have to beat them. I believe we have purpose in making that happen.
If we do not stand together, we will be crushed. The Empire cannot win. Andor, the final season, streaming April 22nd, only on Disney+.
That's cool. Okay, new rockstars, and maybe we'll see some bombastic if there's no new rockstars. But there's probably new rockstars at this point. Tralalero, tralala, polka dia, polka la. Last of Us, Doomsday, Daredevil, Andor Season 2, but that's the first trailer. I don't get this. There's no reaction, or there's probably either two things. One, they're not getting on it, or two, there's just so many things that it takes a while. Let's look at bombastic. He's a trusted Star Wars YouTuber. I hope he doesn't give spoilers for Skeleton Crew. I'm worried about that. Indiana Jones video game. Battlefront 3 details. Maybe the other bombastic account. There are multiple channels. 2. You know what I'm gonna do? Star Wars and Andor Season 2 trailer breakdown. And go to the top ones. That's the first trailer. Okay, Star Wars Explained, Trailer 2 breakdown. You ready? I'm ready. It's 10 minutes, don't worry. So, what will I be doing in this video that will make it significant to even post? I will be giving my reactions to things that I notice, whether that be a or whether that be a or whether that be a and then I tell you a bunch of stuff. But really, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think I'm gonna tell you that much. And I'm sorry about the lighting. I suck at video recording, and this is just how it's gonna be because there's natural light.
Just under a month left until the premiere of Andor Season 2, a second trailer has dropped. There was a lot of discussion surrounding the music and tone of the first trailer, using a real song and all that. I figured that trailer was for fans who didn't give Season 1 a shot. It was still thematically about revolution and rebellion and everything, but it also seemed a little lighter in tone, and some Andor fans were wondering if the second season was shifting gears. I think this second trailer is more for people who already loved Season 1 and were hoping for more storytelling just like that. I wasn't concerned after the first trailer or anything, but this new trailer is much more up my alley and what I was expecting for Andor Season 2. It's so intense with klaxons blaring the entire time. It kind of reminds me of the early Rogue One trailers. I thought it was great, even if it's still very short at less than 90 seconds, but let's break it all down. Like I've been doing for Andor trailer coverage, I'm going to try to lump stuff into their connected arcs, and I will start with Bix and Brasso on the farming planet. I'm expecting this to be early in the season, catching us up with all the characters who fled Ferrix in the Season 1 finale. We've seen Cassian piloting his stolen tie to the planet, and it makes sense that the season wouldn't wait very long to get all of our main cast back together. This is the most we've seen of this community, and it's a lot bigger than I was expecting. I figured it was just Bix, Brasso, Willman, B2Emo, and a few others hiding out somewhere, but they've joined a pretty large, friendly-looking group. But then we see a Gazanti-class freighter entering their orbit and coming to round people up. Those ships were used for transportation by the Empire a lot, including dropping off TIE fighters or walkers. I wonder if the Empire is here specifically for Bix, or if it's more random. Maybe the biggest takeaway I got from this trailer is the fact that a bunch of seemingly unrelated shots might connect into this. What I thought were 2 or 3 separate arcs might all be from the first 3 episodes. We've known Cassian brings that TIE fighter to the farming planet, so I figured the TIE heist would be part of the early episodes. But now we've seen shots of Cassian running around in the woods in what looks like his Cyanar test pilot uniform, and those people he's with look like they're involved in some sabotage and insurgent movement connected with Saw Gerrera or Valencinta, or maybe all of the above. Basically, this trailer made me get out my red string and connect a lot more dots than I have in the past, which just goes to show how big and expansive all these arcs might feel. So much is going on in what I think are just the first 3 episodes. I think we're seeing 3 distinct planets. We've got the wheat-covered farming world, then there's a grass and jungle world that I expect is also where we've seen Valencinta on some mission. Maybe all those people work at Cyanar Fleet Systems, where they manufacture TIE fighters. Cassian and the others could help them lead like a worker uprising as part of a mission to find and steal the TIE Avenger prototype. There's a new shot of the starfighter flying out of a window, and the landscape looks kind of snowy, so maybe that's a 3rd major planet for this arc, and it's possible it could be this snowy world from the trailer. You can see an Imperial shuttle parked outside that building, which definitely doesn't look like a TIE factory, but I'm still crossing my fingers that this might be Eriadu, Grand Moff Tarkin's homeworld. It's very similar to what we've seen of it in the Bad Batch, but there have also been some comics that show Eriadu has some jungle biomes as well. So maybe this is all Eriadu, which would be great to see in live action. Either way, the landscape of that exterior TIE shot looks similar to this shot of Saw's partisans in the rain. Maybe this is a big job to steal the Avenger and also destroy the factory. It could be really cool to see Cassian working with Saw right off the bat. I would be worried for any workers that sign up to work with him, because I doubt he'll be treating them well. We've seen the partisans leaving behind the body of a dead rebel whose uniform kinda matches that of the workers. I could see Saw sacrificing a lot of lives to hit the Empire where they might barely even notice or care. But I think Cassian will get that TIE Avenger and use it to save his friends, getting the Ferrix crew reunited. I bet the Gorman Massacre will be the next 3-episode arc. I've talked about it a lot already, and if you want a full video on what it is and why it's so important, I'll link to it in the cards. But the basics are that it's one of the final straws for Mon Mothma. The Empire kills a bunch of peaceful protesters, and it sparks stronger opposition in the Senate and throughout the galaxy. It's a catalyst for Mothma specifically to publicly denounce the Emperor, and I am so psyched that it looks like we might actually see that moment on screen. We see her in the Senate with tears in her eyes before passionately yelling that the monster will come for us all. There's a lot I'm hoping for in Season 2 of Andor, but if I could just choose one thing to happen, I've wanted to see this speech for a long time, and I hope it's on the same level of Kino Loy and Luthen and Marva's monologues from Season 1. Tony Gilroy has praised Genevieve O'Reilly's performance in this season already, and I cannot wait to see what she has to say. And I already love that shot of her looking straight up terrified in front of the Senate. If you've seen Star Wars Rebels, you know what happens. She gives this speech and has to go on the run because she's wanted for treason. We know she gets away, but Mothma in this moment, she doesn't know that. For all she knows, she could be shot in the Senate Rotunda or arrested the second the speech is over. Of course she'd be afraid. Star Wars Rebels and Return of the Jedi and most stories up until Andor have presented her as confident and unwavering at all times, and it's cool that's the image everyone in the galaxy has of her, but I love getting to know the actual woman and seeing everything she really felt. This is probably the moment I am most hyped to see. And then I hope we get to see the aftermath with her being rescued away from Coruscant. There's a shot of stormtroopers that look like they're running through the city. Maybe they're preparing to arrest her. That could be an awesome speech and then an awesome escape sequence. Let's stick with Mothma a little bit more because I think we got the best confirmation so far that we will be seeing her daughter's wedding. That was pretty easy speculation based on the other trailers, but seeing Mon, Perrin, and the Scoldens walking around two figures dressed in white, yeah, that feels like confirmation. I've been guessing the wedding will take place on Chandrilla, which would be great. Kind of like Eriadu, we've seen very little of Mothma's homeworld and never in live action. The white tree reminds me of the one you can see in Mon's apartment on Coruscant. Hopping back over to Cassian and Luthen, there's an exchange between them I think is very interesting. Luthen says it's a different kind of mission, and when Cassian worries that it could all go up in flames, Luthen says it will burn very brightly. I've been thinking Luthen and Cassian might actually be the cause of the Gorman massacre, and this makes me think that even harder. Cassian is wearing his Gorman look from the other trailers, and Luthen is the kind of person to encourage the pain and suffering of common people to spark more opposition to the Empire. I think Cassian will be going to Gorman to cause the powder keg to explode, which is so dark for Star Wars, but I love the moral debates this series explores. Between the TIE Avenger heist and the Gorman massacre and the aftermath, that covers most of the new shots in the trailer, but there are definitely more I want to discuss, like the extended look at Saw on Jeddah. Previous trailers showed him in what I figured was his Jeddah base, but now we get to look out the window to see Jeddah City and the Dauntless Star Destroyer hovering above it. This is probably one of the few shots from the final arc. We know it takes place in the days leading up to Rogue One. Clea appears in a handful of shots, and it really looks like they're going to put her through the ringer this season. She was so calm and composed in Season 1, maybe being even more put together than Luthen, keeping him from losing his nerve. But every shot of her in this trailer, she's either crying or screaming, and I'm so curious what's going on. It's cool that she seems to know something about the Death Star. I'm sure she doesn't know its name or full purpose, but she might help spark the actual investigation that culminates in Rogue One. Along with Death Star talk, we get a shot of it and Krennic. I think it would be really cool if each arc showed the installation of a new piece of the super laser, like a ticking clock for the Rebel Alliance, which would also work well with Tarkin's line in Rogue One that Krennic has made time an ally of the rebellion. I'm guessing we'll see him in at least 2 arcs this time around, at Mothma's wedding, and there's some shots of him at the Imperial Security Bureau. This trailer also gave us the most Cyril Karn we've seen from Season 2 so far. He just gets one line while he's still a part of the Bureau of Standards, saying that there's a future for those who dare. That sounds intense, but I could also see that as words on a motivational poster in the break room to make office drones feel important. There's a future at the Bureau of Standards for those who dare. And then that's something Cyril has just taken way too seriously, like he does with everything. We don't see a lot of Dedra Meero, but both shots are pretty interesting. One is seemingly of her in her apartment with her hair down, dressed more casually, so I guess we'll see some of her home life. But I think Star Wars fans will be discussing the other shot more, because we have seen that look on countless appearances.
Yeah.
I think fans are going to jump straight to Force Choke, and I don't blame them, but Molly has me convinced it's a panic attack instead. It looks like she's trying to undo her collar, and her eyes aren't focused in front of her as if Vader is staring her down. I think a panic attack seems more likely for this show, but I think we could easily find a way to get her.
No, I mean, obviously it's not Vader in front of her, force choking like that. It's like maybe in a different room. Vader can do that. It's Vader. It's Vader. Trust me.
Dedra in front of Vader, or even Palpatine. And honestly, if I had to choose one Sith Lord to appear this season, I would like it to be the Emperor. He's so over the top and
I think it's gonna be both.
obviously evil. I would love to see Tony Gilroy's take on a black-robed dark sorcerer as the leader of the galaxy. especially if Mothma gets to deliver.
Oh yeah, what confuses me is in Rebels, there was just one scene with the Emperor that looked like how he looked in the Clone Wars or whatever. But also, the Emperor has shown himself to the public the way he's scarred and deformed. But there's also Battlefront 2 campaign propaganda in the video game that depicts him like clean and proper. So I wonder how he's gonna show up.
Deliver her speech to his face. No matter what, I think this shot is in the trailer to make all of us have this exact debate. Force choke, panic attack, Vader, Palpatine. Maybe she is having a panic attack because she just met Palpatine or something like that. But moving on, I'm pretty sure this shot is from that same jungle-looking planet I talked about earlier, but it reminded me quite a bit of Kenari. I hope we get a little more information about Cassian's home and sister and what all went down there. I don't want all of that to just be dropped, and maybe Cassian visiting a jungle world would allow for him to have some decent flashbacks. The last shot I wanted to mention is this one of Cassian with tears in his eyes. I swear, if he is crying over B2 Emo, I'm gonna lose it. I'm so worried for him, and he's barely been in any of these trailers. Frankly, I'm worried for every character. Sure, we know where Cassian and Mothma and Saw and Krennic end up, but the rest of the characters, we have no clue. And in Cassian and Mon's cases, I think we'll have a totally different understanding of them when this series is over. Diego Luna suggested many times it would make Rogue One feel like a completely different movie, so I look forward to rediscovering it when Season 2 is over. But that's it for today. Let me know what you thought of the trailer in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video.
Okay, 10 more minutes, bear with me. This is very important because I need to know about this. I forgot what the Gorman Massacre is. And it probably is very important.
Tony Gilroy has confirmed the Gorman Massacre is officially coming to Andor Season 2. What was originally a very deep-cut event in Star Wars history is about to become well-known across the fandom. So let's talk about what we know about it, what we can expect to see in the series, and why it could recontextualize so much of what we know about the Rebel Alliance. The Gorman Massacre has always been something that was talked about but never directly depicted in a story. It originated in Star Wars Legends role-playing materials from the mid-90s. A group of peaceful protesters fought against Imperial taxation in their sector by blocking Wilhuff Tarkin's ship from landing. So Tarkin simply landed on them, killing hundreds if not thousands. This happened only a year after the rise of the Empire and helped build Tarkin's ruthless reputation. He was not punished for the massacre and was promoted shortly after. The senseless loss of life helped encourage Imperial senators like Mon Mothma and Bail Organa to begin secretly working against the Empire, eventually forming the Rebel Alliance. So that's what we know from non-canon sources, but what do we know about the current Star Wars timeline? For starters, the Gorman Massacre takes place 16 years later in the timeline, about 2 years before the events of Rogue One and A New Hope. According to the Star Wars Timeline's reference book, Imperial troops slaughter peaceful protesters on the planet, and no mention of Tarkin is made. The event still encourages the creation of the Rebel Alliance. Up until this point, several rebel cells worked against the Empire individually, but the Gorman Massacre prompts Mon Mothma to publicly denounce Emperor Palpatine, holding him responsible for the deaths of the protesters. This makes her an enemy of the state and forces her to flee Coruscant and go into hiding. Thanks to Gold Squadron and the crew of the Ghost, she is rescued from Imperial agents and reaches Dantooine, where she sends out a message of unity for all rebel cells.
I never thought that Dantooine was an actual planet. I thought when Leia said it, she meant Tatooine, but pronounced it wrong. Maybe she did. Distraction.
A small fleet meets her in orbit, and so the Rebel Alliance officially begins. I expect that information will form the basis of what we see in Andor Season 2, and Tony Gilroy recently had plenty to say about the Gorman Massacre. In an interview with Collider, he said it will be a significant part of the show that carries over 5 different episodes. He says there's a lot of confusion within canon about what actually happened there, but says he's confident that the really deep, passionate Star Wars community will appreciate how they've straightened out that story. I don't know that I would say there's confusion surrounding the massacre as much as I would say it's simply been left undefined. But for an event that holds such a profound impact on the founder of the Rebel Alliance, I am already glad to have it defined in the series. Since the series is broken into 4 3-episode arcs and each arc takes place in a different year, I don't think we're going to see the massacre itself lasting 5 full episodes. I'm expecting there will be 2 episodes and 1 or 2 earlier arcs that fill us in on how the protests are building. The seeds were already planted in Season 1, with Mothma telling Perrin that the shipping lanes to Gorman were cut off and that it would lead to starvation. She also attempts to introduce a bill to help the Gormans before she is interrupted by the news of the Aldhani heist. I think we can expect similar build-up in Season 2, perhaps showing the Empire's growing presence on the planet in response to the protests. I think that would catch the eye of Luthen Rail. My current theory is that we will learn that the Gorman massacre is similar to the Aldhani heist in the sense that it will be partially manufactured by Luthen. He robbed the Empire in Season 1 for credits, absolutely, but he also wanted the Emperor to overreact. He wanted people to suffer at the Empire's hands so they would wake up and fight back. The Gorman massacre could be the next evolution of that. If the eyes of the galaxy are on the Gorman protesters, Luthen could see that as a powder keg that simply needs a match. We've seen Cassian blending in on the planet and assembling a sniper rifle in his hotel room. Maybe he's been sent to assassinate a high-ranking Imperial there, or maybe he's simply told to open fire on a stormtrooper, once again sparking an overreaction, a public display of violence at the hands of the Empire for the whole galaxy to see. It could galvanize galactic citizens and senators to more actively fight back, but this time it will be at the cost of innocent protesters. I wonder if that could push Mothma to take that leadership role as well. Luthen's playbook is decidedly not what we're used to seeing from the Rebel Alliance. I wonder if there could be a bit of a power struggle between the two of them. I've loved how this series has wrestled with Mothma as an idealistic leader, while Luthen is more realistic. Star Wars talks a lot about how to fight without losing your soul, and Luthen is a character who has straight up admitted to burning his. I think Mon is propped up as an example of what we should hope for in our leaders, but Luthen is unfortunately the kind of person a rebellion winds up needing to shock people into action. He and Saw Gerrera are firmly in fighting what you hate territory, while Mothma is about saving what you love. Maybe the Gorman massacre will be the event that shocks her into a moment of clarity, realizing that if she doesn't step up to lead the rebellion, then they might all burn their souls along with Luthen. There definitely seems to be some conflict coming for the two characters. Speaking with Entertainment Weekly, Gilroy said, "I think of Luthen as a startup CEO, some guy who built a business in his garage. For 15 years, he built the revolution in his garage, he and Clea. Then in Aldhani in Season 1, they went public, and now they're out there. Now for the next 4 years, how do you scale your company up? It's multinational. How do you scale your little business that was so successful in your garage and build it out? And if your business is based on secrecy and paranoia, how hard is that to do? And how well are you going to play with others? And how welcoming are you going to be to new ideas? Those are all going to be the friction for him in this second half. He has one speed, and that is to make this all happen. He would do anything for the revolution, anything." I think seeing more friction between rebel leaders sounds incredibly interesting, especially after reading about exactly that in the recent book, The Mask of Fear. We're so used to seeing rebels like Mothma and Bail Organa being shining examples of leadership and cooperation, but in that book, they do not get along. I would love to see Mothma's relationships with Bail and Luthen evolve up until that point where she takes the public leadership role. It does sound like we'll be seeing her big exit from the Senate as well. I don't think we're going to get all the way up to Dantooine and everything we got to see in Star Wars Rebels, but in 2 separate interviews, Tony Gilroy mentioned Mothma leaving the Senate as a big moment on his calendar of galactic history. He knew he had a 5-year period of the Star Wars timeline, and he marked down all the big events he wanted to define. I think he wants to define Mothma's exit from the Senate, and I really hope we get to see her full speech denouncing Palpatine. Andor has become known for its amazing monologues, and I'd love Genevieve O'Reilly to get a chance to deliver a speech as iconic as those given by Stellan Skarsgård, Andy Serkis, and Fiona Shaw. Once again, speaking with Entertainment Weekly, Gilroy said, "I don't think anybody has a harder road than Mothma does, because she has to do everything that everybody else does with all the tension, fear, and anxiety, and she has to do it in public. She has nowhere to hide, and this season just ramps that up to an almost unbearable point. What Genevieve is going to do in this second season, we realized in the first season what a brilliant actress she was and that we hadn't found the limits of what she could do. We still haven't found them. But the opportunity to write for her and write her story large was very important to me in the second season. O'Reilly's scene with Tay Colma, where she keeps reminding him to smile, like Tony says, being a rebel in public, that's one of my favorite scenes of Season 1. I'm so happy it sounds like we'll be getting more of that and far more of the character in Season 2. I think it would...
I think I just
It
won
wasn't
my
done,
tax.
but I
Oh yeah? I just
exited.
switched from TurboTax to H&R Block. It was so easy.
You
Okay, that's shade on TurboTax.
Would be awesome if Cassian were involved in rescuing her off of Coruscant, but I'm not sure how that'll work with different arcs taking place in separate years. I will say I think there's potential for some of the timeline to get moved around a bit. Mothma establishes the Rebel Alliance above Dantooine 2 years before the Battle of Yavin in Star Wars Rebels. I think that will stay consistent. But it's possible they could move the Gorman Massacre to the year 3 BBY or something, so we could get 3 episodes about the massacre, do a time jump, and then get 3 episodes about Mothma fleeing the Senate and Coruscant. Timeline questions aside, I think the Gorman Massacre will be a great chance to tie directly into Cassian's story as well. In Rogue One, he tells Jyn he needs to go to Scarif to make up for all the terrible things he's done in the name of the rebellion, working as an assassin and saboteur. We also see the moment that it all becomes too much for him. He can't bring himself to assassinate Galen Erso. I think we could mirror that exact moment in Andor Season 2. If Cassian is there to assassinate an official or simply open fire on a random stormtrooper, we could get those same shots of him looking down the barrel, lining up the shot. Maybe he has a moment of doubt, but then he pulls the trigger and chaos erupts. Gormans are killed, and it will be partially his fault. Luthen might be able to rationalize the loss of life if it brings more leaders and fighters to the rebellion, but I can't imagine that would sit well with Cassian, especially if he has to live through it all while Luthen is safe and desensitized in his shop. Actually showing us some of the terrible things Cassian did will make his choice and sacrifice in Rogue One even more significant. Something I love about Andor is that it explores the themes of Star Wars in a more complex way. So far, I think everything it has to say is in line with George Lucas's messaging and the kinds of morals you would find in the Clone Wars, for example, but it digs deeper into our real lives. The villains on screen aren't cackling sorcerers in black robes with lightning shooting out of their fingertips. They're overly zealous corporate security guards searching for belonging. The heroes aren't dressed in white and gold with lightsabers shining against the dark. They're people struggling to find what's right when all those very obvious heroes have been killed off. And then you have people like Luthen, who are definitely against the Empire, but can you classify him as a hero when he treats his people like pieces on a Jedrick board? I loved talking about the moral complexity of Andor Season 1, and I think Season 2 having a strong focus on something like the Gorman Massacre is a great sign. I have a feeling we'll have a lot to talk about for those 5 episodes and beyond. Hopefully this video has you primed and ready to understand the significance and weight of that event. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the
Okay,
channel.
this has been really interesting. I've realized so many things that I didn't before. First note is the fact that Lutheran and that whole gang get things done in an unethical way. They start fires so that people notice, but so that people notice it and have it be bad to the Empire. People aren't willing to fight the Empire, but if they make the Empire look bad, even when they know that the Empire is bad, it sort of seems manipulative. But it works. And yeah. I'm gonna skim through Star Wars Explained YouTube channel to see any more videos that I might need to see. Trailer breakdown. Special look breakdown. Exclusive first look at Star Wars complete locations. And their special look first night's issue. Last week, no. Everything inside Fortress. Last weekend, important. Star Wars Celebration. Trailer breakdown. Sebulba returns. Your questions answered. Star Wars Tales of the Underworld. I'm not planning on covering that here. Andor Season 1 most frequently asked questions. Hopefully we have time to watch this 13-minute video.
Andor Season 2 is almost
I'm
here.
sorry this video is very compiled up so much. I just want to know so much about this so that I'm ready.
To help prepare, I've put together a list of 20 of the most frequently
20
asked questions I've seen about Andor Season 1 over the past 2.5 years, similar to the videos I've been doing for all the Star Wars movies. So let's get started.
Every donk I've ever submitted has always said you were born on Fest.
Why did Marva tell everyone Cassian was from Fest instead of Kenari? In-universe, it sounds like there was some sort of disaster there that the Republic and the Empire wanted to cover up, so people from Kenari were probably of great interest to them. But out of universe, Cassian's homeworld was initially listed as Fest in Star Wars reference books. The writers of Andor had a different idea for his story, and so they changed that detail, but gave a wink and a nod to fans who like to read those books and learn those details, basically changing Fest into deliberate misinformation.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's a book that says it's Fest, but then he wanted something different.
Why are Republic officers seen wearing separatist uniforms on Kenari? As Casa explores the shipwreck on his homeworld, the logo for the Confederacy of Independent Systems is clearly seen on their jumpsuits, but Marva later refers to the ship and its crew as part of the Republic. The StarWars.com episode guide even calls attention to the detail. This could mean that logo was used for an organization set within the Republic before systems started seceding, or maybe this all takes place in the midst of the Separatist crisis, and this could be a false flag operation, with Republic
it's the
soldiers
second one.
masquerading as Separatists on some mission gone wrong. We don't know the answer yet, and I hope we learn more in Season 2.
An untraceable Starpath unit. Vector crystals and seals still intact.
What is the Imperial box Andor
Yeah.
attempts to sell to Luthen? He says it's an untraceable NS9 Starpath unit, but what is that really? It can track
I turned
Imperial
this into a
traffic for
second
9
clip, don't
radial
worry.
parsecs, but we know a little more about it thanks to the 1998 novel I, Jedi by Michael Stackpole, the only other story where this device has ever been mentioned. There we can read that the Starpath was the navigation system on the Errant Venture, which was a liberated Star Destroyer owned by the smuggler Booster Tarek in the years following the Battle of Endor. So we can assume that the box Cassian stole from the Empire was meant to be installed as the navigation system for a Star Destroyer. It
So it's a really good navigation system.
likely had far more functions than tracking Imperial coordinates, but that would be the primary reason a rebel fighter like Luthen Rail would want to have it.
I open the question to the room. What do we do in this building? Why are we here?
What exactly is the Imperial Security Bureau? While the ISB had a military-style hierarchy, it was actually a law enforcement agency. They investigated the loyalty of not only its citizens, but also its officers and military personnel. It was originally meant to work with Imperial intelligence, but the ISB developed more power than its fellow agency, and the two groups became rivals. The Imperial Security Bureau had a more direct line to the Emperor, had a representative on the Imperial Joint Chiefs, and in general had more influence. One of their primary concerns was rooting out rebellious activity, but since they were not actively a part of the Imperial military, they were willing to look more closely at high-ranking officers. Many members of the military actively feared the Imperial Security Bureau. This kind of infighting and self-policing was likely by design to encourage competition. The Empire was created by a Sith master who had to kill his own master to rise to the top. Palpatine wants his officials to fight to prove their worth, which would also discourage cooperation against his own power.
The Quati Signet celebrates the uprising against the Rakatan invaders.
Who are the Rakatan invaders mentioned by Luthen Rail in the 4th episode of Andor? That's a really fun Easter egg for fans of the Knights of the Old Republic games. In Star Wars Legends, the Rakata were a conquering alien society that formed the Infinite Empire over 30,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. In general, they were bad news. They were cannibals, and they were Force sensitives who exclusively used the dark side. They enslaved hundreds of planets across the galaxy using a massive space station and weapons factory they called the Starforge. After about 10,000 years in power, the Rakatans were hit by a plague, and in their weakened state, the worlds they controlled rose up against them. Nearly extinct, the survivors returned to their homeworld, Lihan. Why is luggage so terrible in Star Wars? The galaxy far, far away has amazing technology. Lightsabers, starfighters, alcohol that can heal you apparently. But there's one thing we've got that they don't. Luggage with wheels. Why is it that seemingly no one has taken the time to slap a repulsor lift on their suitcase? We know they can put repulsor lifts on a stroller. It can be done, but everyone insists on walking around with their luggage like it's the 1940s. Maybe only the rich can afford to. Maybe Padme's luggage actually did hover, but Anakin insisted on carrying it to show off how big and strong he was. I'm just saying, someone needs to find a way to slap some wheels on a suitcase in Star Wars and just let the credits roll in. Find a way to slap some wheels on a suitcase in Star Wars.
Okay, they should show a clip from Skeleton Crew that I think isn't a spoiler. But I think it's just, it shows more eerie-greery if you're holding everything rather than wheeling it around, even though it's easier. I don't know. It's director's choice. It's not that big of a deal. But
Senator, this is a place where time stands still.
What Easter eggs can you find in Luthen's Antiquities shop? There are a lot, but I'll talk about the biggest ones real fast. There's a set of Sith stalker armor in the back of the showroom. That design was first made famous by Galen Merrick, also known as Starkiller, from the Star Wars Legends game The Force Unleashed.
Oh, yeah.
Off to one of the sides, you can find some tablets with artwork of hands on them. Those are related to the Mortis gods, as seen in the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, and
yeah.
most recently, the final episode of Ahsoka Season 1. On the other side of the showroom, you can find a Calicori. That was a Twi'lek family heirloom first seen in Star Wars Rebels. In the back of the shop are some holocrons, which were storage devices used by the Jedi and the Sith, and the Force was required to open them. And you can also find the Sankara stones, a whip, and the fertility idol from the Indiana Jones franchise.
Ars Danga Sly Moore from the Vizier's private chamber?
Who did Perrin invite to his dinner party that got Mon Mothma so upset? She specifically mentions Sly Moore and Ars Dangor. Moore was the Umbaran chief of staff for Palpatine, seen in Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and several comics. She was lightly Force-sensitive and was fully aware of Palpatine's true identity as Darth Sidious. Ars Dangor was one of the Emperor's creepy advisors seen on the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi. He was also likely a dark side acolyte of some
I
kind.
don't remember that scene.
Why aren't there any stormtroopers on Aldhani? There are. See them way down there? Okay, but why weren't there more stormtroopers seen throughout the series in general? According to the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire, by the time of the Battle of Yavin, stormtroopers and their many variants made up the bulk of the Imperial infantry, but it took several years for the stormtrooper program to reach that point. So at the time of Andor, 5 years earlier, regular army troopers were a far more common sight. According to the same book, conflicts and crises had to escalate through numerous levels of the military's internal ranking criteria before they would be considered serious enough to justify stormtrooper deployment. That's why we see mostly regular army troopers on Ferrix, with a handful of stormtroopers and eventually even death troopers brought in for support. As the rebellion against the Empire grows, so too does the more constant presence of stormtroopers across the galaxy.
You kill us anyway.
Because that's what you do, right?
Did Cinta kill the hostages on Aldhani? We can't say for sure, but I really think she did. We don't see it happen, but we are told and shown that she is one of, if not the most cold-blooded member of the heist crew. Despite that, she is seen walking away from the base with tears streaming down her face. Why would she be crying if she left everyone alive? No, Luthen definitely seems like the type to not leave loose ends after this mission. Everyone in that room saw faces that could lead back to him. I think we are led to believe Cinta killed them all.
I spoke with Emperor Palpatine last night.
Who is Wolf Yularen? He was a Republic admiral during the Clone Wars that often served alongside Anakin.
No, that was him? This is the guy, the Clone Wars voice. In all the intros, he's the guy that does the recap. That was him.
Who is Wolf Yularen? He was a Republic admiral during the Clone Wars that often served alongside Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. After the rise of the Empire, he shifted careers to join the Imperial Security Bureau at the rank of colonel. He had a hand in training agents like Alexander Callis and helped an up-and-coming naval officer named Thrawn achieve the rank of Grand Admiral. Yularen was first seen as a background character in A New Hope during the Death Star meeting with Grand Moff Tarkin, Darth Vader, and the other Joint Chiefs, and he died when the space station was destroyed by Luke Skywalker.
Don't forget the pizzos.
What are pizzos? Cassian's companion on Niamos asks him to pick some up. According to StarWars.com, they're a form of legal stimulant pill. I believe we see Dedra Meero taking them before a long night of research in the episode titled The Axe Forgets.
Cheaper than droids and easier to replace.
Why does the Empire use sentient labor in its prison instead of droids? Cassian straight up says the human prisoners are cheaper and easier to replace than droids, but I've still seen that question pop up a lot. The Empire uses sentient labor because they can. The heist on Aldhani leads to an influx of prisoners. They might as well use them. Just because droid technology exists doesn't mean it's the most efficient use of resources. Droids cost money, they can break down, they need maintenance, they can only be pushed as far as their programming allows. But sentients? They're coming into the prisons for free. Sure, you need to keep them fed and on their feet, but they can be intimidated and pushed and motivated into working harder. They compete against one another, and if they break down or die, the Empire can replace them instantly. The Empire uses sentient labor instead of droids because they can. It's cruel, but the cruelty is the point. Why were there no aliens in the prison on Narkina 5?
Yeah, it was
Before
all
being
male.
sent there, Cassian is asked what his home planet is. I think the Empire is segregating people based on their species for the type of labor they'll be performing.
That's interesting.
Working on an assembly line like they do in Narkina 5, it makes sense to keep the workers biologically and physiologically consistent. Having a tall, four-armed basilisk working on the line might unnecessarily mess up a team's efficiency. Okay, so why don't we see Pantorans or Mirialans or other near-humans in the prison? The Empire had some pro-human, anti-alien agendas, so I could see them having fully human prisons. It's complete.
Pro-human, anti-alien agendas. I've never seen any stormtroopers that were aliens, so I guess that's valid. Maybe the First Order had some that were like that, but they were completely different. Let's keep that in mind.
Possible near-human aliens were sent somewhere even worse. I kinda wish this had been hinted at back on Niamos, where we could have shown humans and aliens being separated and sent to different shuttles, but oh well.
My name is Kino Loy.
Why was Kino Loy arrested? We don't know officially, but actor Andy Serkis came up with a backstory that he revealed in an interview with Maggie Lovett on Collider. He thinks of Kino as a shop steward who fought for workers' rights, which unfortunately caused him to be viewed as a troublemaker. When he was incarcerated, he then almost sheds any desire to look out for other people apart from himself. Just do his time and get out, to try and get out and just survive the sentence, the torture, the desensitization. He says it was that desensitization that made him perhaps have that slightly lost but kind of hardened and toughened shell.
Put it down, I'll give it back.
Is Luthen's cane a secret lightsaber? I saw a lot of people wondering about this back when Season 1 was airing, but no, it's the same retractable cane we see him carrying throughout the series. But there is more to it than meets the eye. The Black Series action figure of Luthen Rail shows that a knife or vibroblade is concealed within the handle, so there is a secret weapon hidden within, but as of right now, nothing to suggest it's a lightsaber in disguise.
Arrestor cruiser, Cantwell class.
What Imperial ship attempted to capture Luthen above Segra Milo? The Fondor droid calls it a Cantwell-class arrestor cruiser. It was outfitted with 3 very powerful tractor beams and 2 hangars that could hold up to 2 squadrons of TIE fighters or TIE variants. Its primary purpose was to capture enemy vessels. Its design dates all the way back to concept art for the original Star Wars back in 1977 by artist Colin Cantwell. It was written into Solo: A Star Wars Story, but its primary scene was cut, although you can still see a brief flash of it in the Imperial recruitment holovid. What other secrets does Luthen's ship, the Fondor, hide? Way back in Episode 4, Cassian points out that the engines have far more kick than a regular Fondor hull craft, and of course we see it's also full of countermeasures, hidden blaster cannons, and even energy blades of some kind. We don't have the full story yet, but I suspect the Fondor might be powered by kyber crystals. We know Luthen
I always think that it's a Star Wars thing if there just is a lightsaber. And there has to be. I always think that. Every single Star Wars show, at least one season, one episode, one scene, lightsaber. Andor, it didn't show any lightsabers, so either we'll see a lightsaber, or I guess you could consider Luthen's ship to be like a lightsaber, as it may be powered with kyber crystals, is my thought.
Had some Sky Kyber, not to mention all the other Jedi artifacts he has in his shop. If he got his hands on some Kyber, I could absolutely see him putting it to use against the Empire. Why did Cyril and Mosk swap hats in the Andor finale? At its core, I think that's just a gesture of camaraderie. The two men still see themselves as members of corporate security, even though they no longer hold the job. Officers wore hats with orange visors, and
I think they're just best friends.
those under their command wore hats with blue visors. Mosk saw Cyril unhappily fiddling with his hat, maybe thinking about how far he had fallen from grace, and so he offered to give him the orange hat, showing that he still respects Karn, views him as higher up in the chain of command, will follow his lead, and will have his back. I've also seen some suggestions that swapping hats is a strategy for spies and protesters. Basically, if the two of them were to get separated, they'd have an easier time spotting their own hat on someone else than they would remembering what hat the other person was wearing. I couldn't find a source for that, but it does make some sense. I lean towards it simply being a nice gesture between two self-important fascists, but it's open to interpretation.
Fight the Empire!
Did Marva really say fight the Empire in her speech, or did she say something else? She definitely dropped the F-bomb. Interviews have stated as much, and you can watch Fiona Shaw reporting the scene on the 4K release of Season 1, and they bleep the word out. And those are the 20 most frequently asked questions I've seen pop up over and over again about Andor Season 1. If you like this style of video, check out this playlist covering the...
Viewers, thank you for watching. This has been enjoyable for me because I like watching and learning about this stuff. If you guys are excited, drop a thumbs up, like the video, and comment down below your favorite color. I don't know. Excuse me. Have a good day.